this is basically what I have prepared myself to talk about is uh, thesis topic selection, which is little which is not very easy because you always think that if I just wait a little, I'll come across a really good ideas and I'll have great theses and all this thing. Or sometimes what happens is you're clueless kind of thing, like you don't know how to go about choosing your topics, and you're scared you might make a mistake which later on you might regret. So all these things, and like trying to decide on thesis topic is not a it's not a problem that is unique to Nepal or to the on campus only. All over the world, all students are always struggling with thesis topic. So I mean, nothing new, right? So you guys are not really in a unique position as a student of architecture and trying to decide what is your thesis topic. But so I thought if we talk about it, maybe it will help you decide, so the thing with architecture is there are never a ready-made solution. You don't have a workbook, manual kind of thing. If you do this, you'll get this thesis. The thing is you have to select the thesis topic, and there are certain things that you might consider, and at the end of the day you'll have to do it, and nobody can come up with, okay, this is your thesis. Even if they come up with the idea this is your thesis, and you'll not like it. You'll think what, I can do it, I can do better than that kind of thing. So anyway, so also you can't wait forever to decide on thesis topic. You have to decide early on. And most of the student, it's very hard to decide on topic, and it's not concrete in the very beginning. It's not well formulated in the very beginning, well articulated in the very beginning. But as you go on, it could get little clearer and clearer. So I mean, it's not you have to decide everything early on, but you should be fairly clear about thesis, for example, title. This thing with the title is almost abstract of your thesis. Not only that, title will guide you, will help you organize your thesis and create rules and prevent you from going all over the place. So to be able to decide on title is very, very important. It's just a word, but that's what makes your thesis. So title, don't take title lightly. And to begin with, you have to be very, very creative with title to start with, right? Your title should be when people hear or read a title of your thesis on your book, or when they hear it, so they should be already interested kind of thing. Oh, this seems interesting. Maybe I want to sit down and listen to it for few minutes. I don't think I'll be extremely bored or something like that. So people are not interested in other people's work. They're only interested in their work, and you have to work very hard. You have to try very hard to make other people get interested in what you have to say, or what you have just done. So I have just prepared very roughly a slide kind of thing, which I'll share, and just because that we'll be a little systematic and we might not miss a whole lot of thing that way. So, but I'm new with this team, this application, and I'll have to struggle, but you'll have to bear with me, if I made some stupid mistake or something like that. But So Mandal sir must have told you, already that we'll most probably talk for about maybe 45 minutes or so, something like that, give or take. So I'm not in a hurry, and I hope you guys are not in a hurry too. But by making it long talk, it's not like we'll gain much by talking forever. So time is of essence also. If you are able to, um, not make it like extremely long, then you'll maybe retain or you'll find it interesting also. So, and after my talk, try to have questions. I think about this question. Some of the questions you might already have it, and some of the question you can have it after you listen to me. And so you have to be careful with the questions also. So I'm not trying to encourage you with the questions. In fact, I want to encourage you with the questions, but you have to be smart to ask. Be careful, because most of the time when student asks questions, it just goes on to show how unprepared they are. They are just asking questions because they have to do something, just get noticed or something like that. So, but anyway, so I hope we'll have question answer, and in that question answer session, I think the real problem will get solved. But we'll try to limit ourselves with what do you call it? Thesis topic selection. Because we're at that stage, right? And okay, so let me see. Yeah, just a second. Oops. Don't worry. Slideshow. This is how it is. Let me go to the slideshow. So BR's thesis topic selection, informal and informal approach. So this is, talking about this title. This is the title, and I wanted to make it like informal because this is not like, this is the way to do it kind of thing. It is just a casual talk kind of thing. So let's consider this an informal approach. Yeah. So let's not get too serious. Don't hold me into all this thing. Oh, you said this, and now you're answerable for this thing. But anyway, so to start with, what will so in the very beginning, to start with, so first thing first, so it's very important. So, I mean, all this thing like project, getting things done and everything, like assignment and how do you deal with assignment. These are all like, it's psychological, So before anything, you have to be psychologically very strong. That means like you have to be strong in your mind, in your head, to get things done. It's not your strength that get things done, but it is like your mind, actually, how you think, that gets things done, right? So you have to, you have to be psychologically very strong. You have to be a strong person. He's strong in heart, strong in head, kind of thing, So you should really in this, during this time of thesis, you should really question yourself, who are you actually, Why are you even studying architecture? What do you want to do later in life, How come you didn't learn anything in these 5 years, Why were you so stupid and not to take architecture so seriously, that kind of thing. Maybe you did take seriously, maybe. I hope you did take seriously. Otherwise, you're in trouble. Anyway, so so prepare yourself, muster up this inner strength and start questioning yourself, like, who you are. So in this line, while you are, wondering who you are and all this thing, we could, place it in along some station kind of thing. There's this thing called personal journey, right? What I mean is like, like your upbringing, how you're growing up, your childhood friend, your like what kind of neighborhood did you grow up in, uh, your parents, grandparents, the story that you heard, the games that you play, rivers, pond, squares, uh, playing field, all that kind of thing. How is your like how did you come here, kind of thing at this point, right? Excuse me. So you have to investigate yourself. I mean, you have to investigate yourself because you know your work is expression of yourself. And in architecture, you really have to be true and honest. You should let yourself speak. You cannot make other people talk through your work. You have to. Your work is yourself, and through your work, you are talking. People will, let's not say will judge you who you are by your work, but they will. They will if when they see your work, and they will like judge. Oh, so this is who this guy is. Kind of thing. So that doesn't mean you have to be scared to be. I mean, judged, because you better find out who you are, and if people makes a mistake on judging you, bad for them, anyways. So this personal journey, how did you get here? Like, all the interesting thing that happened to you, that has happened to you so far, your relationship, your cousins, think of all these things. And because, I mean, telling you to think about this, your personal journey, because, that will bring the person inside you ahead and make you do things, select certain things, select certain topics, and, modify certain things. Anyway, so, we make this personal journey, and that makes us who we are, kind of thing, or at least we have at this juncture, we can say like we have certain outlook about life, about politics, about health, about education, about morality. We have certain outlook by now, and we have positioned ourselves in a certain vantage point from where we see the world, so we have placed ourselves in that position, and that, which means that we have certain outlook towards life, what we call paradigm kind of thing, that's how we look at the world, so what's your life's outlook? What's your sense of morality? What's your sense of social justice? What's political idea that you're motivated or inspired by? What art movement that you thought was really fascinating? Was digital really fascinating? What was Dadaism, or something that you want to do, or constructivism? Did you thought Bauhaus was very interesting? So what has influenced you, and the big idea? Who do you like? Plato? You like Kant? What do you think of Lake North Korea, Lachprasad Devkata? What do you think of their work, kind of thing? What do you think of Shakespeare, or John Grisham, or I don't know, all this. Anyways, so life's outlook. Let's think about that. Okay, what's your life's outlook? How do you see this world? What is like your preferences, your opinion? Think about those things, and if you want to write it down, this is just for you. You don't have to show it to everybody, and it helps. It helps like find yourself. Most of the time we don't come across this challenge every now and then, which demands the answer, who are you, kind of thing, but sometimes, it's nice to answer that questions, like, what is your outlook? What is your opinion? Right? So there is this uh, life's outlook. And uh, hang on. So uh, if you can, if you have that slide in your mind, after life's outlook, there is this national and local. What I mean is, like, like, now you have to be contextual kind of thing. Like, for example, what's your sense of nationality? Oh, I'm Nepali. We have to go in war with all this country and expand our national boundary and things like that. Or like, what does nationalism means to you? Or what it is, what does it mean to be Nepali? What am I moved by? Am I moved by Nepali music? Am I moved by Nepali food? Am I moved by how my grandmother talks to me? uh, what is your sense of nationality? Or what is your, if you talk about province and provinciality, now, like, politics in Nepal has gone through all kind of transformation, and everybody, they're all thinking of, all political parties are fighting for identities. And once they have established identity in letter, at least, like say Madhes kind of thing, they they are not equally encouraged to find artistic expression to that identity. What does it mean to be a Tharu in Nepal? Like artistically. And are we going to make that Mithila art over and over again? Like how many Tharu are going to, like, work on this Mithila art, right? So, but expression cannot be limited in that sense. So this newfound identity is also very challenging artistically. Have you thought, like, what does it mean artistically? To be, to be able. I mean, when you have this identity carved out, it's not. When it's only limited to political, it becomes really unsuccessful. But to be really successful about this identity, it has to find some artistic expression also. Anyways, so that also like shapes your choices. Like what direction you want to go for. What are really dear to your heart, kind of thing. So you talk about this thing, and you talk with yourself, and you try to write it down. The important questions or important statement, and you write it again and again, so it becomes more clearer and clearer. You elaborate and you summarize, that kind of thing. So every now and then you should write a paragraph, and summarize, and like sometime, just work with the keyword, and like elaborate on it, kind of. Anyways, so that's how, what we're talking about now is like trying to find out who we are, right? That's the beginning. And also in this, while thinking about it, there's another thing is environment. I say environment because we are not in Nepal. We feel as if environment is problem of the Western world. It's their making, and we didn't destroy it. They destroyed it, and they better take care of it. We don't even have enough money to take care of it, so we'll not bother, kind of thing. So it's not only that. We're equally responsible. If we can make some contribution to betterment of environment, we should do it. But architecture is about building. It's not about planting trees. But people are totally misguided when they start. I think they are misguided when they start planting tree all over the wall. What are you going to do with the land? You cut the forest and you plant tree on your building, like God, like as if we don't have any place to plant trees. Anyways, I think that is little. I find it little misguided. Like getting evangelical about environment, and like for the environment. Also, like it's little trendy, and it catches certain group of people's eyes. And you are able to draw this sympathetic, you are able to draw sympathetic gaze towards you. You know, people are like, oh, nice, nice. You are, you like Greta Thunberg. Oh, yeah, yeah. You know, anyway, but environment is nevertheless important. And when architecture is working with environment, it's really interesting. But environment, being environmentally sensitive, like for example, you don't have to tell architect to be environmentally sensitive. It's by default they are sensitive towards environment, right? uh, and and more than that, it's engineering. It's the expert. We should be able to take help of the expert in on this environment. We have actually mastered in the area of environmental science, or preservation and things like that. We are let's be architect. Let's not be environmental engineer or something, environmental police or whatever. But in environment, because if we fail to do something about, if we are ambivalent to environment and just let it happen, we'll all die. We'll all cease to exist. Because rising temperature is a serious concern. It's not a joke. So be mindful of environment. When I say environment in architecture, what we do is we design with the environment, because it is kind of a constraint and an opportunity, and if you look at all this architecture, for example, Glen Market and all this thing, it takes this environment and location into account and comes with like very interesting, very uh, surprising solution. Wow, architecture can be like that. How interesting, kind of thing. But anyway, so be sensitive and be mindful of environment, our earth. Don't be environmental fanatics either. Don't just start planting trees everywhere. Anyways, okay. So take a position in environment, yeah. And architecture and architects, the other point was architecture and architect. What I mean by that is, like, we like and dislike all these architects and their work, and there are so many buildings that we like which might not be attributed to any architects or designer, but sometimes it just exists. You don't know who did it, like vernacular architecture kind of thing. But there is this building architecture and this architects, a personality, and there is theory of architecture. What's the motivational force behind that work or that person, through what idea, what idea moved that person, or what idea generated that building. So, you have to think about that, because you like certain thing and you're not really fond of certain things. And we should focus on the things that we like, and because there are already so many things we like, don't worry about the things that you don't like, focus on the things that there are already too many. So we have to narrow down and try to connect ourselves with the work that we think that really talks with us, close to us, close to our heart. So think of like name architect, name of the building, name of the architecture, the style, like motivating ideas, architecture ideas, write it down. Later on it will be part of your whole story, narrative, who you are, why you are doing certain thing. It will go on to support your action in later phase, or design decision in later phase. So architects and architecture, so go through all this, skim through this thing, and revise and look further. Turn the pages of the design magazine, or go through the web. Because these days there are no end-to-end information. Information is like there's a mountain of information, and like how will you unearth it? How you select it is like Anyways, so and then later on make the list of building type. What are all building types there? And in conjunction with past thesis, refer to all the past thesis that student have done, like the best thesis. What have they done and how have they done it? And when I say past thesis, I'm not asking you to limit yourself to Nepali thesis only. Don't be a kuakabaguto, but I want to caution you, like when you go and look at thesis from, like for example, you should go to RIBA site and like check out award-winning student thesis. Yeah, and I want to warn you, like don't be disheartened, because their works are like way up there, and don't be disheartened, but look at them. At least what's going on, like what to strive for ultimately, kind of thing. So you have to have this realistic worldview kind of thing. When you talk about student thesis, let's not be too comfortable with our work. This little world where all kind of things are appreciated and people are congratulating each other and patting on the back for like very very banal work. And people say, oh, this is Nepal, this is what we do, this is how it is. Yeah, this is already too much. Kind of, no, it's not. Like art is like you cannot say it's a good art just because some Nepali did it, even though it's lousy kind of thing. Good art is good art, whether it's produced here in Nepal or like anywhere in this world. So architecture, you cannot say like I do bad architecture because it's Nepal kind of thing. We don't have that kind of leeway, or we should not take that kind of excuses. We should at least strive to make ourselves world citizen. Bring ourselves to this world standard. And get our moral high. But anyway, so building type, make list of building type, because this building type it helps. So later on, what you do is you work with the prevalent or existing ideas, existing building type, and you think like, okay, in my case, this is what is going to go away, and I'm going to add this. So there is this addition and subtraction, and transforming it to your idea of thesis. Yeah. So there is this thing, past thesis, okay, and building type. So all these points will help you decide on who you are and what your preferences are, and this will ultimately help you guide or find your topics that you actually want to work with, and that you actually enjoy, and that actually is close to your heart, and that people will actually benefit from you. I mean, when I say people, I mean your friend and your junior and architecture community. We all can benefit from like honest and serious work of student. In fact, I myself have learned so much from student theses. When I was working together with student on their thesis, it's really illuminating and exciting for me, and an opportunity to learn new things for me as well. And I always say, to my student, I used to say all this thing to my student, well, guys, I don't know how much you have learned from this class or this lecture or this, thing, but I have learned a lot, I hope you have learned something too, So It's an irony that, teacher ends up learning more than the student, but that's how it is, I guess. Uh, you should also have that capacity to learn. As a student, your capacity to learn in early years are reasonably limited. You have to expand that capacity as well. But anyway, so I'll try to share the next slide. Um, I say successful thesis because uh, I think we should have this end game. Uh, you know, uh, we should be able to envision end game to a certain extent beforehand. Because we should be in a way, we should be a little clear about, like, what what is what is that we're actually trying to do. How it will be like, when it's all done and finished. Okay. So let's imagine an end game. Let's look at this successful thesis. When you look at people's, all the toppers theses from Nepal, India, and all over the world, you can have this certain idea, clarified, or like, which you, um, anyway. So successful thesis, what is a successful thesis? We we won't be able to know it by just sitting in a corner. You have to look at thesis of these other people, student, previous thesis, and of your friend, and from all over the world. You should look at this thing, and then you should have clear idea what is being appreciated. you know uh, but at the same time, we're not trying to repeat the success of your previous student. We are building a reference kind of thing. Okay, this has been historically, this has been appreciated so far, and now, I'll do this kind of thing. So we build our like work based on the history. All right. So in that sense, history is imperative. You cannot just disregard history. you know you cannot say, oh, I'm so creative, I don't have to go through anything. I just, all these new ideas, it just comes to me unstoppable, man. I just cannot hold it. No, it's not like that. What you do is you work with the history, you work with the previous solution, and you come up with something new. In this sense, we should go back and re- reread your intention in architecture. Nürnberg Schulz. He talks about like how invention of a form kind of thing. What is being innovative? In order to be innovative, you don't have to go to the moon and find something really strange and bring it back to the earth. It's not like that. You work with what you have right here. Anyway, so successful thesis. Let's build this. This scenario. What is successful thesis? First of all, it has to be completed. You cannot go and say, okay, I have half finished it. I'll just talk about it. I'll tell you what I want to do, what my plan is, kind of thing. No, that doesn't work. So when you present a thesis, it has to be done, completely done. You cannot say, oh, I have to color it there. No, anything that is, you didn't do it, you couldn't finish it, is what you did and what you finished. You know what I mean? When you put your thesis for review kind of thing, jury, this is done. That's what you have done. You can say, oh, wait, I have to do one thing more. And you will be judged according to what's there. Yeah. So complete, this thesis has to be complete, right? Complete drawing, complete report, everything completed, All right. So first thing first, completed. Another thing is, I was, telling you about it. So if you go through this, it's completed, title, introduction. Title means title of the thesis. Introduction means like, like your introduction passes, first paragraph kind of thing. You will have to introduce the project. What happens is like, most of the time, this reviewer, when they are going through your report, they will read your introduction, if not the whole thing. And that introduction page has to be, clear, concise, and complete. It cannot be too long. It should be able, you should be able to summarize your project in that introduction passes. So that's very important, how you introduce your project. So introduction, if you look at all these theses, the way they talk about thesis in a very short paragraph, is very helpful, and that's what makes thesis successful, because then you are interested, then you want to look at his drawings and all these things, and you'll understand, oh, this makes sense, kind of thing. So introduction is very important. Title, I was saying title important because, as I was telling you earlier, title kind of summarizes your thesis, and it also is it also sets a parameter, design parameter kind of thing. What to do, what not to do, what to be expected, kind of thing. It sets this, boundary, for you to work with. The extreme. It sets all these extreme points. How far can you go, kind of thing. What to expect, and it is the first instance where people will get the sense of you being creative. How creative you are also depends on how you have, worded your title. All right. So usually title is like, for example, as I was doing topic selection, after saying topic selection, what I've done is there's secondary title and informal approach to, things like that, So with that two things in conjunction, it paints the broader picture, So always work with the title. Keep on you have to keep on working, and more often it is not decided at the very outset, but as you go on working with your thesis, it will be clearer, and little later on, you will be able to pin down your title. Anyway, so all interesting thesis, good thesis, successful thesis have very creative title, and introduction. Okay, you have to, how you're going to introduce your thesis. Okay, another goal. People should, in order to judge your thesis, okay, what this guy has set himself against, kind of what's his challenge, how interesting his thesis going to be, how hard is he going to work, kind of thing. That can be, understood by the goal that you have set, the goal that you have articulated. This is what I want to do, kind of thing. Then people will take you seriously. Oh, he's into, or she's into something very, very interesting, kind of thing. Okay. Anyways, so goal. And you get confused. Goal, aim, issues. All these things sound similar, but ultimately, goal is like, don't have like, go. It has to be, the goal can be little bit philosophical, but has to be architectural. For example, if you are doing, if you're thinking of doing a hospital, then you cannot say, I want to, I want to cure the people from cancer, kind of thing, And you will not have architecture that cures cancer like medicine, kind of hospital, kind of thing, So you have to understand, cancer and cure of cancer is the medicine field, right? What you are doing is like you are creating a context environment for that kind of treatment to happen. Yeah, you are not designing medicine, you are designing a space where people will, administer medicine kind of thing on a sick patient kind of thing, right? So be clear about that idea. You know, if you're doing, let's say, architectural college of architecture, you know, uh, um, there, you know, you are not designing a curriculum. Yeah, you know, you are doing, you are thinking of creating a space where all the student of architecture and faculty will have very inspiring space to work with, add on, or whatever. Yeah. So these big ideas and how it's connected to a design solution. You know, be realistic about it. You know, don't make your life too hard by, like, you know, you reaching for a sky. You know, as an architect, you have to be work with, you know, lines and, like, you know, colors and, like, in maybe model. You know, you will not, just because you're designing architecture school, you will not come up with a textbook. You know, right? So about this goal, you know, be realistic. You know, connect, try to have this architectural bearing, and its connection with architecture, how it's connected with architecture. You know, the solution has to be architectural solution. It cannot be like, you know, military solution, you know, like going to a war kind of. You know, it has to be about building. Okay. Anyways, so the narrative. Um, uh, what I mean by narrative is storyline. Your work, your thesis, the whole thing is a story. You know, and because, you know, in a story, all these characters are there for certain purpose. You know, in a story, it's not like you have a character or event totally unrelated to the whole story, and it's no. So it's not like that, right? So the book is maybe like 300 pages with, like, you know, 45 different characters. You know, among them, 4 are very important, and let's say 1 protagonist. You know, so there is this character development, you know, a sequence of events, and, you know, culminating to this climax and resolution and all this thing. You know, so you call that, you know, it progresses on a very systematic way, which we call a narrative, right? But sometimes it is fashionable to have disjuncted narrative, or not follow the sequence. You know, expected clear cut, generally expected sequence, and you know, you fragment it and reassemble it, and you try to create some sort of a, you know, different kind of meaning which you wouldn't have been able to create with a straightforward narrative. You know, for example, you know, when you cannot, you know, comment something intelligently or, you know, mannerfully, you inject a joke, you know, and say what you want to say without, like, hurting anybody, kind of thing. You know, so so there is all this. You can see, you know, if you read book, and if you read literature, you'll know all this thing. Like, you know, the relationship between, you know, story and architecture becomes more like, you know, obvious. You know, in architecture also, like, how do we handle different element, how do you place one thing before other thing, you know, and how do you build expectation, you know, how do you resolve it, all this thing. And successful thesis have a very, usually has a very clear cut storyline. You know, why things are there, you know, how people progress, you know, what will people see on the way, there is this user experience, you know, owner's profit, you know, everything, you know, ties together in this whole, this idea of one thesis, right? So you know, when you are presenting your thesis, you know, you have to speak, you know, you can say my building, my project has 5 bedrooms and 3 living rooms, and that's not very exciting. Okay, because you are not presenting it as a story. You are presenting as like uh, technical data from field surveyor. There's people who is going to has noted down all these numbers and all these things, and people will not be interested in technical data kind of thing. And that's very important part of design. But in order to communicate with people, you know you talk with, like, like, how does it all, how is it all making sense? In what way it is a grand uh, magnum opus kind of thing. We say grand finale, but that's not what I'm trying to say. But about grand gesture kind of thing, that there's all kind of small act is coming within that thing. Yeah. So narrative, you can also listen to Western classical symphony and, like, have this idea of, like, how different things are, like, brought together to create a whole kind of thing. How little things progresses to push the story forward kind of thing, storyline forward. Sometimes you bring different character to make your story go in certain direction. Same with architecture. If you look at the building and how it's designed and how unit are organized and then, so try to have a narrative. When I'm saying narrative, I also mean that, like, in that story there is a personal touch also. The story is about you and how you are connected to that story. So it's a good idea to connect yourself with the story and make it more convincing. So and you can see in all these successful theses this strong narrative. Yeah. Okay. Then let's talk about site. Which is one of the most important aspect of architecture or a thesis or successful thesis. The site has to be interesting. It has to be rich and diverse. And it should be laden with value, like cultural and historical value. Site that means something. It's not just a piece of land, like square feet area, square feet. Site is where you can actually build a building. It's not only that. It's a kind. It's like it's a kind of a beast. It's alive. So you look at all this successful thesis, and they all have very interesting site. Not only they are very interesting site, they are able to make that site very interesting with their design as well. So there are two things happening, and one thing is, to start with, site is already very interesting and diverse and rich. Okay, challenging with all the constraint and all this thing. And oops, sorry, oops, really, okay, this thing is really fast. Okay, yeah, and also, like, through your design, you can mold, or you can give shape to your site too. Because you have designed in certain way, you have placed building in certain way, that site begins to look more exciting now. So it's two-way traffic. You are influencing the site, and the site is influencing your architecture. Yeah, site means, like, not only the your legal ownership. It also means neighborhood, reason. And usually we're talking about context. where are you putting your building, and then it talks about vegetation, people, city or village, flora and fauna kind of thing, views, access to it, infrastructure, what kind of services you can expect, what is it good for, can it service the people kind of thing. For example, they are building big apartment building next to Tunikil in existing bus park in Kathmandu. So it's very interesting. Okay, fine. We need high rise, high density building in town. Okay, fine. But what happens is, like with high rise and high density, the number of people per going and coming to that point increases, drastically increases, and that has to be serviced by a road. How are you going to do it? For example, if you have a airport nearby, if two jumbo jet lands let's say almost simultaneously kind of thing, there will be like 1,500 passenger, and to receive them and to see off some of them, there are like 3,000 people on the road, going crossing each other at the airport gate kind of thing. Is the transportation system uh, capable enough to handle that kind of traffic? So when you're talking about the site, you should also think about things like that. Site's capacity to like service and drinking water kind of thing. What happened in Kathmandu now these days is like people are like very eager and like buying land and building houses right and left, and there is just not enough drinking water. The garbage disposal is always a problem. Right? You cannot expand without thinking of all these things. But we do it anyway, and we suffer, But because of whom do we suffer is the question. But anyway, so site. Think of the site. It's the single. I wouldn't say single most important, but it is very, very important. It really give impetus. It really like gives like power to your project. Then it will get more defined. Or after looking at site, then you might have this totally new idea about your project. Hey, this is what I want to build here, kind of thing. So site, interesting, crazy site. What happens is, so often what happens is somebody wants to do Tharu Museum in Tarai, and they end up choosing really flat land, like with no references, and it's very hard to do interesting project, totally flat land with nothing around, So you have already put yourself in a disadvantageous position by selecting that kind of site. It has to be diverse and it has to be rich, some constraint, anyways. So think of things. Sometimes people find it very, interesting site with a lot of, very beautiful terrain and all these things, but you cannot fit your building there. Like you cannot have a airport in some hilly village, right? Just like that. And what these days, or in Nepal, what we see is like like village school in hilly region of Nepal. It's very interesting. They occupy this grazing area, tar, patan, or whatever flat land at the top of the hill kind of thing. They occupy it, and the school is one big, long, rectangular mass with most probably green CGI seat roof. It looks horrible, on the amidst the landscape of that hill, And anyways, But so think of these sites. This is microclimate. What is microclimate? You know, Kathmandu has a particular climate, but in Kathmandu, Godavari has a very different climate, and Budanilkanta has very different climate. Yeah, like in Baneswar, I have wind direction is southwest kind of thing, west southwest kind of thing. I live in Gotatar, and Gotatar wind direction is northwest. And south, there's very cool breeze coming from south, and I don't understand how, because cool breeze is supposed to come from northeast direction. There are somehow cool breezes coming from southwest direction. And the worst part of that thing is in the night. What happens is, like, when the air get dense kind of thing with the moisture in the air gets heavy and everything comes down, so does the pollution comes down as well. So you can smell the brick factory fume kind of thing, very bad. But anyway, so wind direction, views, all these things are, when you start looking at this thing carefully, the idea starts coming, your project start taking shape kind of thing. So, and ultimately we'll come to this concept. So, concept these days, if you, concept is basically a working diagram, okay? If you have a concept, it is easy for you to, go on working with your design project, because you have some, guided thing, like you have fixed the design parameter, like, within what you are, you will work, like if there is no boundary, like, it becomes very hard for you to, like, let's say football, if there was not this white, chalk mark on the periphery, one football team would be playing from here to Birganj, it would not end. Anyway, so the boundary, so it has to be, constricted, so we should work with concept. That means you should be able to conceptualize things. When we say conceptualize, that means like abstract understanding. This complex, this big thing, you are able to abstract it and simplify it and make it understandable, which means you are able to conceptualize it, right? When you conceptualize it, let's say, when I usually give example about money, you understand what is money, right? We understand. We have conceptualized. We have this concept of money. But if you start talking in economical term, what is money? You'll get totally confused. So that this confusing, very very confusing phenomena, money. Every child understands what money is, though, right? They act and behaves in a certain way that is consistent with what money is. So even the child is able to conceptualize the money. So that's the concept. What I mean is, child is also, knowledgeable about the concept of money, right? He doesn't understand the whole thing about the money, but concept, he has got it. So that is a concept. Concept is not necessarily a rectangle or sphere or things like that. But in architecture, we try to conceptualize things graphically also. Sometimes 2D, sometimes in terms of 3D also. So there are various ways of conceptualizing thesis work. But if you look at all these successful thesis work, they all have very clear, concise concept. which means they are able to talk about their project graphically very clearly. You know, their project is represented graphically. Their uh, organization of space, their intentions, why they are doing what they are doing in that particular site is, you know, expressed very clearly through the diagram and all these things because they were able to conceptualize it, right? So ultimately, the whole project is conceptualized in a certain way. I mean, in this regard, you have to be, you have to be mindful of this. You have to be really, you have to trade carefully with this concept thing. So usually, you don't have concept in the very beginning of your project. In order to have concept, you have to work hard. First, you have to investigate. For example, for I was telling you like who you are, like what's your story and all this thing. So what's your project? What's the pros and cons kind of thing. Then slowly you begin to build a concept. Right? So what are the issues and this will address kind of thing. So so what I mean is after having certain level of understanding, then you are able to conceptualize your project. Then after that, there is totally different thing after being able to conceptualize your project and having an analogy, which means like, okay, I want to design my building like a fish because I am doing a fishery. People do it, people want to start with this idea of a building that already looks like something, and that is directly connected to the function or use of the building. For example, I was telling you, if you're doing a department of fishery, maybe you will start to do my building will look like a fish. Be careful. This is very obvious and very heavy-handed way of doing architecture, and this is not exactly how we do architecture. It's not that straightforward and that obvious. But in your design thinking book, and there's called this literal analogy, which is like sometimes you work with this literal analogy. So building your project will look like something. It will resemble something. That is one way of conceptualizing your building. Of course, that also helps, but don't rely too much on it because it restricts your creativity. It prevents you from exploring, design ideas to its fullest. And because you are so afraid that you might have to destroy this form that you have already conceived. So that restriction is not very helpful. And for what? For that shape. And sometimes people, a student gets totally, confused that, they think this, fish shape in this plan of the building is the concept. In the plan, you don't even see it when you in a 3D, with the walls and everything. And so there's big confusion. Plan is, of course, to have plan in a certain way of certain shapes. It helps you bring it together, organize it, and make it work. Of course, you have to work in a plan, and with certain shape, maybe it will work. But my idea is fish, and that fish is limited to the plan. Anyways, a building works and visually it works in 3D, right? Anyway. So, hang on. Okay. Okay. Here I want to. Okay, I also wanted to go through a few of the things. which I had written. I'll just read it out to the things which I had noted down, so that if I miss something, it will be here. For example, goal. It was saying clearly stated goal, purpose, or aim of the project. You have to have that. This is response to keywords such as purpose, uses, client, owner, issue, value, scale, etc. are clearly stated and demonstrated through architecture. I mean, your goal, how it's clarified. You could use graphics such as photograph, sketch, and diagram to clarify your ideas. Anyway, narrative, engaging story with personal touch. Story is about event, ideas, or people, which is similar to architectural solution. Okay, I talked about that. Site, which is rich and diverse, natural, historical, and cultural value. Right, leading with that. Many challenges, constraint, and opportunity. Sites should, poses many challenges. Strong connection between the site and design. So in the successful thesis, you do see strong connection between site and design. Design is influencing site, site is influencing design. Anyway, so a concept, uniqueness of concept. Prevalent or existing project is reimagined or redefined. So, if you look at all this project, and what they are doing, what it is about, or in what way is that project unique, is how they have been able to redefine what used to be done. Like, for example, if you are doing, let's say, civic center kind of thing, then community center sort of thing. Okay, the idea is, in the community, there's a need for space for people to come together, then it could be many things. For example, in a Kathmandu, let's say they want to come together for a jatra. Then now you want to work with the idea of guti. So gutiar, and how they can, and what does the gutiar do? They hang out, they sunbathe, they do this bhajan, and they do this bhoj, and so you begin to have this community center in a very unique way that is more leaning towards Newari and Japu culture. So then as you go on, like what I mean is, you will not suddenly have table tennis board in that Guti thing, right? Whereas normally when you see, this kind of a project, you will have table tennis board, basketball court, and party palace, and bank, and like trailer machine kind of, ATM machine kind of, this kind of thing, But when you are thinking of Newar, Jatra, Guti, and so you are thinking in a different way, but some civic center kind of thing, right? Anyways, so reimagined. Okay, so uniqueness of concept. Your concept has to be unique. It cannot be the same thing. Oh, but I have already seen this thing. For example, if you do, okay, my project is a radio station, then maybe the reviewer has already seen 3 radio station already kind of thing in previous year. So again, radio station. Same with architecture college, School of Art and Architecture. Not again kind of thing, Oh no, what could possibly be there now, It's very interesting. First, you come to administration, then you administrative block, then you go pass through administrative block, and you come to this academic block, and you pass academic block, and you come to this hostel, girls hostel on this side, boys hostel on this side. In the middle of the girls hostel and boys hostel, there is a canteen and cafeteria, so that the girls and boys remain separated. Anyway, so that kind of obvious interpretation, architecture solution. For that, we don't have to study architecture. Anyway, so uniqueness concept. When you conceptualize the project, it has to be unique. Okay, work with the unique concept. Okay, unique concept very. Sometimes you can have totally new concept just because of the nature of the project. Okay, in Nepal they decide to do nuclear power plant. If you have to design it, it's totally new thing, right? Nobody has done it so far. You don't know what it is, how it's going to look like. So it's totally new, no references, kind of thing. Sometimes project is unique in that sense, but it doesn't always have to be unique in that way. What happens is concept is kind of a it's kind of a surprise entry. It makes its entrance in, let's say, for reviewer. Unique. What does the unique concept do to the reviewer kind of thing, to the audience kind of thing? The uniqueness of the concept come across as a surprise. Really? What it is? Say that again, kind of thing. Okay, and it's a little ambiguous. You don't know exactly what it is, and you are interested to know what it is. Like, it demands your attention at first, but very quickly it is made clear because of its simplicity and clarity of purpose and deliberateness, because you have really thought it out. It'll be very clear very quickly. So that is the unique concept. Sometimes you come up with such a unique concept that nobody will understand. So not a good idea. Anyway. Okay, clearly stated goal, purpose. Anyways, okay. Another. Okay, then I want to let me share this slide once again. Okay. Okay. Oh, okay. Concept, project, justification. All right. So if you look at any thesis, there is a very strong reason for that project to be there, and there are this group of people who will benefit from that group of people. When I say group of people, it's not only limited to imagined user, but also like architectural community. Because of the uniqueness of the project, sometimes it is really nice to see some unique project and you really appreciate it because there was so much opportunity to learn, and really think, oh my God, if this was really to happen, how it would go. And so project is justified in many ways. Usually it's justified at the outset because of its uniqueness. People want to have the unique solution, very interesting solution, which supports learning, which supports research, which supports innovative ideas. Anyway, so and sometimes other projects are very practical and pragmatic. It's about function and all this thing. Not really about avant-garde, not about being avant-garde. Like not every projects are about like this pointed shape, or fragmented object kind of thing, or like very curvilinear Hadid kind of thing. Anyway, but a project has to be justified in terms of, for example, I also, I would like to inject something here regarding justification. These days, what I see in the student thesis is their projects expand in this land mass of ad infinitum. There's like acres and acres of land, as if people were able to get that land in a like boxes kind of thing. The land price has become so high. In spite of that, we're all doing project in this acres and acres, this project in expanding this landmass, and I often wonder if people are encouraged to be realistic, and why are they're not encouraged to be realistic when it comes to this land area, you know anyways, so we have to be mindful of that too. uh, for example, like living in Nepal, we live in a very crowded space, okay, and our projects are so sparse, as if we're in America, USA kind of thing, so we have to be mindful of that too. Anyways, so uh, project justification. Another area is also floor area efficiency. You know, if your project is not really about achieving some very lofty goal in terms of form, your project should be efficient enough. You cannot be wasteful in terms of areas, how much area you have located. An effective area, carpet, like functional area. Like for example, if you're doing office, there has to be enough office, not more corridors than office. Things like that. This let's be mindful that project is efficient. Let's not overdo it. Right? Usually, if you overdo it, graphically it comes across and it destroys your project. Okay, so this efficiency is not this mathematical thing alone, it's also very visual thing. Anyway, okay, okay, project, it can be justified in so many ways. So let's look for all different area where and how this project can be justified. And if you look at this successful thesis, you can see how it's been justified. Sometimes people are so against thesis project, so against, and as if it's a taboo. No, you can't do that project. And but when you say no, you can't do that project, subtext should be, but I'm open for argument. Okay, why do you want to do that? But tell me, convince me, kind of thing. Okay, you should be open for, teachers should be open for it too. If some student wants to do some crazy project, why stop him? How come he can't do it? Anyway, so there is this thing, sometimes there is no project justification in the eyes of the supervisor, and the student is totally excited about this project. I have seen this happens, and it ends very badly. And I see no blame on students' part. Anyways, but project justification. What I'm saying is, sometimes when you are doing this crazy idea, and your supervisor is not really excited about this, project concept, title, approach, or whatever, and so you have to be careful. Maybe you like it, maybe it's close to your heart, maybe that's what you want to do, that's dear to you, but still, be careful. Anyway, so project justification, and project can be justified in many different ways. So for that, you have to look at all these theses and how this particular thesis has been justified. And for example, let's talk about bus park. There was an instance when a student had done a bus park in a center of the city, and the argument was, no, you can't do bus park in the center of the city because center of the city is already crowded, you know. So that's one argument. Oh, okay, but you know, but shouldn't there be a bus park in the center of the city is another argument, you know. And people might say, no, 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 you know, in Kathmandu, in Nepal, we have bus park in, like, you know, Balaju bypass, you know. Why make bus park in the Ratna Park, you know, that kind of thing. And people are sometimes limited in their vision and outlook, and they, you know, but because if you look at like Shinjuku in Japan is in this city center, and a Port Authority in New York is in city center, big buses at Penn Station is in city center. So, you know, you can see if you don't have bus station in the city center, you know, the city will, it will have a hard time surviving, you know. The business will have a hard time, you know, if people cannot get into the and from the city center, it will become very difficult. So from the business side, from so many other sides, you know, it's very important to have a bus station in the middle of the city. But people in the very beginning, they're up in arms. What, bus station in the middle of the city? No, 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 no. In Nepal, we don't do it, kind of thing. But you know, that's valid in a way. But you know, I don't know. Students should think imaginatively, or teachers should think imaginatively, and both, I guess, you know. So student are challenged to teacher, and you know, teacher are challenged to student as well. Anyway, project justification. Okay, research and precedence. So these things, research is when you're doing research, I mean, it's very important research. Why? Because you have to build understanding about your project, right? To understand your project fully and totally, and to add new dimension to your project, you have to conduct this research, you know. And research should be done in such a way that it is helpful architecturally, you know. You are not doing research for some biochemist, you know, who's going to make new medicine for coronavirus, kind of thing. You know, so ultimate result of your research is building. Okay, so be mindful of that. You know, so research, why? Fundamentally because it builds understanding of your project. Excuse me. What I mean is, the success of your project depends on how much do you know about your project, right? So how much you know about your project means you should have looked at it from a many different angle. Its pros and cons, its expectation, its potential, and its constraint, and its need, its justification, all these things, you know. So for that, you have to conduct research, you know, to have this better understanding of your project. And together with research, there is case study. Okay, so when you're doing case study, you know, you sometimes people do case studies that is only a small part of that project is related to, you know, students' thesis project, and which is waste of time. So I think, you know, you can also fragment the project and study certain section, certain part only for your reference, you know, as a precedence. Okay, in that thing, you know, this chemical lab was done this way and I want to do it this way, kind of thing. So I want to study only this laboratory only. kind of thing. You can do that too, I guess. It doesn't have to always have to be this huge project, which has got very little bearing on your thesis project. So try to connect your study with the result, with the design solution. So I mean, if you look at this successful thesis project, you can see the case studies have directly helped the project or inspired or influenced the thesis project. So there has to be that sort of connection. Okay, and constant constraints. Uh, Things. So constraints are constraints emerge in a very interesting way. So, like for example, in a form of bylaws, in form of standards, in all these things, in forms of like hazard. In this way, constraint is constantly emerging in terms of like project cost, right? In terms of available land, so all this creates this constant, and when it's manageable, it furthers your design and it gives strength to your design. And because when people see responding to constraint, then people, generally people will feel like, oh, this is well designed, kind of thing, right? For example, weather, climate is a constant. If you are doing a building in Tarai region of Nepal, it's very, very hot, so that will lead to this certain kind of architecture, and discourage other type of architecture. So it's very interesting, to be selective on the type of architecture, and its element that has to do with sun and sunset, and like other element that has to do with cooling. So you can bring new life to your project through constraint. And on all this successful project, you should note that how constraint has helped this project to become even stronger and better, and produce a better design solution, in terms of use of material, shape, forms, all these things, element of architecture, okay. So constraints, okay. Look at this constraint side of this thesis project, all right. Then ultimately, design solution, okay. You have to form a program, ultimately with constraint, all this thing, and then, all the issues and like, values and all these things. Ultimately, you'll be able to form a program. What's the need of your project in terms of square feet, in terms of names of rooms, numbers of rooms, in terms of like, what room is going to house what type of equipment or furnitures, where certain events will take place. And so you develop a program to address all those needs, okay? And we call this design solution. And design solution, there you will see strong connection between the needs, constraint, research, concept, and design solution. So in the big story, every character is playing its part perfectly, kind of thing. Okay, so design solution means like everything, as I was telling you, like number of rooms, square feet, what type of enclosure it has to be. It has to be opaque or perforated or transparent, how area and what kind of level change do we have to, introduce, like, proximity, how far from each other that has to be, how it should be connected, how it's going to be layered first floor, second floor, kind of thing, so all these things, design solution, are diagrammed, and it's expressed like through the diagram. Okay, this is how the space is allocated and organized. towards the view, towards the heat kind of thing, how the axis is laid out. So these are all design solutions. Finally, what form, what visual effect do you want to create? Are you going towards like trendy look or more rugged look? What sort of design theory are you going to incorporate to, establish its visual expression? So design solution, yeah, actually how the building is designed, actual architecture. What is the architecture these days in the students project? What happens is they have already taken this huge site, and they end up doing a little bit of site plan kind, and they're putting blocks in this big site, and there is no architecture. Means like, there is no study on organization of architecture element, how the architecture elements are organized. In the students project, those things are completely lacking, and it's the project is limited to site planning alone. Okay, here is my amphitheater, here is my theater kind of thing. So the look of the theaters itself are not, studied minutely. But in architecture we have to study architecture. So look at all these theses from outside Nepal, and look at their architecture also. Their theses are not only about site planning, like putting this certain unit in a big landmass kind of thing. So design solution, ultimately creativity. So at the end of the day, you will sense that, okay, this guy is really creative. The solution was very creative, aesthetically pleasing, very powerful argument. Building starts looking better also when you have like better, strong argument. Or building starts looking better if it is intelligent, if it's deliberate. If you have made studies, if you have taken it seriously, it will all reflect on this, your work. So creativity, so what creativity is, right? And when you see a thesis project, you should also try to, okay, for this thesis on creativity, I want to give from on 1 to 10, I'll give this project 9 kind of thing. Try to rank it. So what's the level of creativity kind of thing? It's also trains your eyes and makes you more conscious on this creative side of the project. Yeah. So creativity, drawing model and presentation. Okay, then okay. All right. So after creativity, there is you'll see the complete sets of drawings and report, and everything's are compiled nicely and organized properly. And there's all these different model studies, sketch model, presentation model, finished model. You should have a model. Yeah? There's no what if you and the complete work is presented. Complete sets of drawing is presented in a prescribed manner. How the institute has told you guys to present in what form, in what format you have to do it. You have to do that. Okay, and it has to be complete. It has to be complete. Everything has to be there. And presentation. And lastly, if you look at this thesis, some of the things they have maybe a video student presenting their thesis, and reviewer reacting to the student presentation. You should look at this thing. But what I want to tell you is your thesis is, a culmination of 5 years of college, so this is significant, not only that, but you will remember your thesis forever, so it's, don't take it lightly. It's very, very important. It will stick with you forever, and it also could make you the kind of architect later, what thesis you do, kind of thing. It shapes your destiny also, so be careful and present it like, it's very important to you, it's not like, oh yeah, I had no time, but I want to just get it done, kind of thing. Let's try to avoid that sort of mentality, and let's be serious, and let's be joyful and rejoice in the fact that you are doing thesis. Yes, this is always what I wanted to do. Finally I'm in a position where I can do something interesting, kind of thing. So get excited about this thing and present your work that way. Make presentation that way. When you present your thesis, be ready for that. Yeah. So I hope you will have, great presentation, and ultimately, what I want to push for, it's none of my business, but what I want to push for is, each student should get at least, if not 3 hours, 1 hour of presentation, preferably each student should get 3 hours time allocated for him, so that the student could be really grilled, and he could be, reviewed, question on nitty gritty of this thing, usually what happens is like, in 45 minutes, okay, what you have done, you have like 5 minutes, tell me how the, but okay, now let's see, okay, your time is up, now next, kind of thing, I don't think that's how BR's thesis should be conducted. We have to be more serious about this thing, so that, and also more demanding, students should not be, made to skip thesis, just, like, oh my God, it's over so soon, kind of thing, Anyways, so try to celebrate the fact that you're a fifth-year student and you will do the best thesis. Yeah. And if you have that in mind, you will do the best thesis. And but after this thing said and done, what I want to say is, I want to share these slides. Hang on. What happened? Okay, can you see the screen? देखा छ? Okay. Is screen देखा छ?
Right. Sir, we can see the screen, but the size of the slide is not visible, sir.
Yeah, I'll do it. Okay.
Sir, we can see now.
Yeah. So after successful thesis, there is this site selection. Be mindful about site selection. Yeah. I don't have to go through this again and again, but it's very, very important selecting site, and try to select your site before it's too late. Let's say, early stage of project proposal, I have said, so when I come to project proposal, I have said initial stage. Initial stage is developing project brief, brainstorming, research, site selection, testing the viability of project and site, making adjustment, fine tuning it, matching with the idea of successful thesis, and cross checking your project with the idea of successful thesis. What's your chances, kind of thing, and seeking approval. So before this, final stage, kind sort of like seeking approval thing, the site has to be selected. Because usually in so many cases, thesis topic title comes from the site. So it's very, very important that you select the site early on. Then balance the challenge. That's what I say. Don't make life too hard for you. You have to challenge yourself so that the best will come from you. But just to prove that, oh, you are so great, don't be too ambitious. Don't be over ambitious. Sometimes what happens is, psychologically, what people do is like, they go into this self-fulfilling prophecy kind of thing, where they select the project or they make the project so big, they know they will definitely not be able to finish it. That way, they can justify their, their kind of a greatness. Oh, just I didn't have time to finish it. If I'd finished it, it would be so great. Kind of thing. So don't go in that direction. Be realistic. Okay, don't go into the self-fulfilling prophecy to project yourself in a certain light. Be realistic. Yeah, and size your project. Don't make it too big. Okay, you have to be able to have fun. You have to be able to put your idea, test and see it grow. If it's within a certain skill, then you will be able to exercise your control. If it's too big, there is no learning. Yeah. So don't go for too big a project. Don't make it too big. Scale it down. I would say scale it down. So that's my idea. Then the thesis begins in real sense. Project title. This is when you are really ready to go. Your project title, you have clear-cut instruction, clear-cut goal, the site is well-defined, and you have topo map and everything. You have visited the site, and you have what you're going to research and what kind of building you're going to research. You have already made preliminary research about the site and everything, about the program, about the space requirement, about the building type, issue and ideas. What are the issues that coming from the site and the program? So ultimately you have program formulation. Then you are ready to go. All right. So okay. So I'll stop sharing the